Welcome everyone to today's session on the Entrepreneurial Empowerment series. And this session is about a very hot topic that we get asked a lot, talk about it and to provide resources on it. So preparing for funding. And of course, a session like this, 30 minutes long, as you're used to, for those that have attended some of our sessions, they're very efficient. We're not going to be able to cover all aspects of funding, and there'll be many more sessions to come on the topic of funding and investment. But we do have a good lineup of speakers and lineup of different resources available to you to help you with this very important topic. So I'm Shadi Banna, and I'm your host for today. And I'd like to welcome you all. We've already had a chat with some of you online, and we've got people joining us from Vancouver all the way to Indonesia and many places in between. So great to have you all with us. As you could see in the session agenda over here, we're going to cover the topic of funding investment from different angles. And I'll be talking later on a little bit more about the different angles and introducing to you some of our speakers who are with us today. So for those that haven't registered in the SME program, we encourage you to do that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But let's kick off the session with this quote from Benjamin Franklin that I really like when it comes to investment and funding. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So many companies, many entrepreneurs rush to get investment, to get financing. And sometimes especially like when we see all of these funding rounds and investment rounds coming, we assume that that's an objective, but it's not really the objective. The objective is to use any investment or funding to fuel your business. And if that investment and funding can help you in developing your knowledge, which helps you in developing your business, then it will pay the best interest. I've seen so many startups, so many entrepreneurs raise funding, and then before they know it, they've actually run out of that funding because they didn't really use it in the right way. So that's my quick tip as we kick off this session. Make sure that you are making the most of any investment and make sure that it's helping you learn how to gather insights about your business and improve it. So for those that haven't joined or registered on the platform so far, we encourage you to go to potential.com/SME. Some of you are registering straight onto the webinars. These webinars are held on a weekly basis. But when you go to the platform and register there, you're going to get access to a lot of learning content that's available for you for free at your own pace. There are some special offers that have been curated for you also on the platform. And you can tap into international expertise on the platform itself. When you go over there, if you've missed any of the webinars, they're also now posted straight on the main platform. So if you'd like to go there and watch any of the previous topics that we've discussed, such as innovation, strategy, operations, sales, the whole webinar recordings are available. So feel free to go there. Now, the exciting part is that we're really seeing a wide spectrum of entrepreneurs join us from all over the world. So we have to date participants from over 50 countries who have joined. And I'm very happy to see that actually 45% of these businesses are women-led businesses. And as we move forward with the program, we're going to be partnering with a couple of entities that have a focus on women-led businesses. So hopefully for these businesses will be able to also support or find resources that are available to them. So stay tuned for that. The other good thing is that we have a lot of services businesses, and services businesses can be quickly scaled. So we have lots of resources available to support services businesses. And at the same time, you could see manufacturing and trading businesses are also participating. We'll be, as we go along, also organizing specific kind of sessions for the different sectors, and also adding some specific resources and partnerships to support the different sectors. The other very, very interesting and piece of data that we're really proud about is that for the vast majority of people that are joining the platform, you could see that they're finding it either very useful or somewhat useful. And that's really a great sign. I mean, very few are actually not finding the platform useful. And given the diversity of people coming from different countries and the diversity of tracks, we're basically really, really happy to see that people are getting value from the platform and the engagement. So now to start off our first segment, and it's basically tips, tools, and resources. We wanted to highlight to you some of the resources that are available to you on the platform. So we're going to share this short video that explains how do you access some of the resources that are related to this topic today. So it's going to take you through a registered, if you've registered before, you just log in again. If you haven't registered for the first time, you log in and you go in. Initially, if you've registered for the first time, you go to the core track. But if you have registered before, you can go straight to your dashboard, as you see here. And because of this topic being around funding and finance, if you click on finance, you'll basically get the offers that are related to finance. Similarly with the experts, if you click on finance, you get the experts that are linked to the finance, and you can get in touch with them and engage. Lastly, this segment, you can see at the bottom of that explanation, there was also some additional courses. And one of the courses is around funding and investment. So that course is in your dashboard. I highly encourage you to go through that course if you are looking at raising funding or applying for a bank loan, or even if you just want to have a way in which you summarize your business. It's a very nice structured program. You can see here the outline of that course. It includes these 9 units that take you through how to define your client segments and what you're focusing on. And then you enter that. Then you go into what is your value proposition that you're providing these customers. You learn about it, but then you also update what is your value proposition, and so on and so forth. You go through the whole business model that you're working on, and the course helps you summarize that. At the end of the course, you could generate what you've inputted is your action plan. It will generate a PDF document that is like a skeleton of your business plan. That's really useful for you to make sure before you go and talk to an investor, before you go and talk to a bank, that you're clear about your business model. And you could take this document with you that is an outcome from this course. So again, you can access this course from your dashboard. It's called Funding and Investment course, and it's at the additional courses section at the bottom of the dashboard. And as you can see, you could go through these 9 units. As we've always mentioned, it's all for free and available to you. So that's the tips, tools, and resources section. Now over to our guest speaker today. So today we have with us Gael Yamin from Middle East Venture Partners, MEVP. MEVP is one of the largest funds in the Middle East and North Africa region. They're very active. They're actually an investor in potential as well. So we're part of the family. And we're happy to have Gael here to share with us some of her thoughts and tips to entrepreneurs, as well as giving us an idea about what does MEVP look for when they're looking for investing in a business. So hopefully we'll get some great insights. And over to you, Gael. Thanks for joining and sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Shadi. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of the SME Empowerment series. I'll be sharing my screen. We'll start with a bit of an overview about MEVP. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So as Shadi mentioned, we're one of the biggest LPGP in the region. We've been there for 10 years. We're a team of 21 people across Beirut, Cairo, Riyadh, Bahrain, and Abu Dhabi. We have 50 plus portfolio company also across the MENA region. And we have 300 million asset under management across 4 funds. So what do we look at usually in terms of geography? First, we're present in the MENA region, in Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Bahrain, KSA, UAE, and we have strong historical coverage across this area. We also cover Turkey, Pakistan, and Kuwait, and also we leverage our partners to cover Africa, mainly also North Africa. So if you're a startup operating, even though you're not based in any of this geography, will be happy to, take the conversation, discover what you do, and how can we help. In terms of sector and industry, if you're a tech startup operating in any of this industry, digitizing any offline segment, also we're happy to look at you, at your portfolio, at your offering, what you're doing, whether it's in new media, e-health, education, e-commerce, marketplace, mobility, fintech, software as a service. As you can see, Potential is one of our also portfolio company. And this is not about only raising money at this point. It's also about raising smart money and how we can help as investor. So we cover geography, also sector, tech, how can we help across the MENA region. But in terms of seed stage, we had investment across seeds from our first MEVP fund. We had seed and Series A in our impact fund that targeted Lebanon. So we also have an investment across region where we can help with an impact, where we can, increase jobs opportunity, increase the economic condition. We also factor in ESG or the United Nations SDGs goal in our investment criteria. Now in our latest fund, MEVP3, we mostly focus on Series B, but that doesn't mean that we do not invest in seed or Series A investment. We like to keep a close relationship with the ecosystem and see when we can help. And as I mentioned, we mostly target MENA region, Turkey and Pakistan. So what do we look at? Mostly we look at, a strong team with previous relevant experience and complementary skills. A competitive edge product with established product market fit, and that is difficult to duplicate. The product should also be targeting a sizable and high growth market size that is scalable across geography, and relatively new market that has no competitor or has high entry barriers. And finally, what we like is successful business model. We like to invest in success cases with organic traction and favorable user economic. How can we help you today? So if I have any tips or tricks, mainly, you're an early stage startup, you have no background or established traction, where we can help you achieve that or talk to investor into achieving that. It's important to leverage your relationship, your presence and network early on, because this discussion as you start can materialize into something in a year or two. And then you can leverage these to actually fundraise, to actually be introduced to someone who might be interested in your next round, whether you fit their criteria or not at this stage. So for example, it's very important to have a strong presence in events such as the SME Empowerment program today, where you can, network, get to know other peers, people, and also leverage this presence across the media event to establish this early connection. And use this network, whether it's in fundraising, whether it's access to talent, because as I mentioned, it's not important only to raise money, it's about how to use the money. And most important thing about using the money is deploy it across your team efficiently, across your resources and assets, and make the most out of your resources, because at some point you're gonna run out. So it's important also to know how to be optimal in that allocation. Second advice I had is the expert. So it's fine not to know everything. It's fine if you're a first-time entrepreneur. You might not be, used to how it happened in the MENA region. You might also be an international entrepreneur coming into the MENA and lacking the local aspect. So it's fine to reach out, ask for advice, whether it's for compliance, legal support, strategical partnership, which, now get us to our fourth point, which is always reaching out, asking for questions, asking what makes sense for your business model. Think about it always in an innovative way. How can you change it? How can you allocate it in a way that is targeting the market you want to be into? So whether it's a new way to approach client, a new way to pilot, to try new stuff, add value services into your offering. And finally, ecosystem support. So these platforms, these panels are very important to find advisor, board members that will support in negotiation, valuation, as well as peers, because at some point, the first paycheck you will get is maybe the first paycheck someone else got at some point, and they have advice, useful advice based on experience, whereas they could have maybe done things differently, maybe, you know, negotiated a higher valuation, better term sheet, because at some point you'll have probably multiple investors fighting over your startup. You want to know who to choose, how to leverage their, not only their money, but their experience and network of connection into benefiting you in the future. So this is it for me today. If anyone has any question, this is us, Middle East Venture Partner, please feel free to reach out. We have a form across our website. You can directly apply, and we are happy to look, you know, whether you're fundraising around or establishing a connection into future fundraising.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Very helpful. And we hope to have you on the future sessions as well. Again, this is a hot topic. A lot of questions are coming to us. So hope you could stay with us till the end. And we have you on other sessions where we can go into some deep dives on specific sectors or other kinds of tips. But that was very valuable. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. So now over to the next section. The Did You Know section with Umayma. Umayma, welcome, and over to you. Let us know what we need to know.
Thank you, Shadi. Hi, everyone from Bahrain. I'm Umayma, and as you probably know by now, I'll be your host of the Did You Know and Newsworthy segment of the Entrepreneur Empowerment series. We use these segments to share useful insights and news that we hope will help you spot opportunities for your business. This week, our session focuses on funding. And before I go ahead, I'm going to test your knowledge on the topic. Do you know how much investment was made in the first 3 months of 2021 in the Middle East and North Africa region? Well, despite the challenges of the pandemic, startups in the MENA region raised $277 million, according to Magnet's Q1 2020 MENA Venture Investment Report. Philip Bahoshi, Magnet's founder and CEO, stated that investment rounds across MENA tend to take on average 6 months to come to fruition. So make sure that you take that into account when raising funding. Impact investment, as well as investments into AI-led businesses, have been very healthy all over the world. We will shed more light on different investment areas in upcoming sessions, but for today, I will share with you some insights about investments into financial technology companies or fintechs. But before that, here's a question. Do you know how much investment was made in the first 3 months of 2021 in fintech businesses? Q1 of 2021 was the largest and most active quarter ever for fintech financing activity, with over $29 billion in volume across more than 750 transactions, according to financial technology partners. As you can see in the slide, the active investments happened across all geographies, with North America taking the lead. Most of the investments went to banking and lending technology initiatives. As such, we will be seeing many digital banks and new payment methods coming up over the next period. Finally, SMEs are less likely to be able to obtain bank loans than large firms. Instead, they rely on internal funds or cash from friends and family to launch and initially run their businesses. The International Finance Corporation, IFC, estimates that 65 million firms, or 40% of formal, micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, in developing countries have an unmet financing need of $5.2 trillion every year, which is equivalent to 1.4 times the current level of the global MSME lending. East Asia and Pacific accounts for the largest share at 46% of the total global finance gap and is followed by Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, and Central Asia. You would be happy to know that we are working with governments and international organizations around the world to highlight the various financing opportunities available to you in various markets. Over the coming months, we'll be adding those resources to the platform. So here's a question for you. What are your financing and funding plans? Is it one of your top priorities? If you haven't registered already, sign up to the free SME Empowerment platform on potential.com/SME to make use of the free resources, expertise, and special offers to help you prepare for your funding or financing round. That's it from my end for this week, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.
Umayma, thank you very much for your continuous valuable insights. Great. So now moving over to the next session, and we're right on time. We'd like to welcome now in the Entrepreneurs Connecting with Entrepreneurs section, one of our friends and longtime contributor to the program in her previous jobs, Shaima Ghafoor. Shaima, welcome. Shaima has a background with Yahoo, with Booking.com, and she finally jumped onto the entrepreneurial bandwagon not too long ago. So good to have you amongst us as fellow entrepreneurs. Shaima, over to you to tell us a bit more about your own business and your own experiences so far.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shadi. First of all, nice to meet everyone, and it's great to be on the show today. As Shadi mentioned, I took the plunge after 10 years working at big tech. Here I am, like most of you on this call, decided to start my own, I co-found a startup. Okay. Just making sure my video popped up.
Now we can see you. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Cool. If we can go back to the previous slide, Daria, just so that when we record this, we can use it again. So, okay, great. And over to you, Shaima. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Just to give you a little bit of context of why I decided to take the plunge and where I ended up today. In the last 10 years, I've worked with all kinds of clients, all kinds of companies, and primarily the solutions that we sold them at Booking.com and Yahoo were already AI-enabled solutions that can support their business needs and their objectives. The reasons that many of these companies work with big tech companies like us is because we had the capabilities to build AI solutions. At Genbu today, what we're trying to do is democratize AI, make it available to anyone who is interested in enabling AI into their own business. What essentially we do is support all app publishers by driving algorithms and models directly into their devices where the data is generated, and allow these trainings to happen on device. Now, what makes us a little bit different is today, if you are an app publisher and you're interested in enabling AI, you need at minimum 6 months of planning your project and the tasks. Part of it includes collecting and structuring the data that you have, centralizing it to the cloud, developing the algorithms and deploying the training rounds on the cloud, and thus sending the data back into the devices. You can imagine something like this takes a long time. And for any app publisher or app developers to find the talent and the time and the money to do this, it's quite costly. And that's why we see that there's a hindrance of AI innovation in the app development space. So what our platform does, it allows app publishers to run algorithms directly where the data sits. By doing this, you pretty much cut the costs and the time and the resources needed to centralize your data into the cloud. What Genbu effectively does, it brings down your costs by 91%. And also from a time perspective, instead of spending a minimum of 6 months deploying AI, you can do this in 5 days. And the best thing, I think this is one of the most important discussions that multiple companies are facing today, is how do you maintain and secure the data? Because algorithms are currently run on device, this is 100% private. So it complies to all global data regulations. And last but not least, especially for companies that require real-time data and analytics, because of the reduction of bandwidth and latency, a lot of the reporting and the analytics is in real time. Now, when we built this, we were building this for a app publisher who does not necessarily have a lot of expertise when it comes to developing AI. And what we've essentially tried to do is try to make this as simple as someone like me or you to deploy it. I'm not techie. However, I do know what AI can achieve if I would to enable it into my company. And that is why the platform today, in 4 steps, you can enable your AI. Along the way, we support our customers by providing them tutorials and documentations that allows them to deploy their first AI. If we take a look into the 4 steps today, it essentially is a developer would easily just enable an SDK into the devices where their apps are running. And by doing so, you're able to install the library into a Jupyter notebook. Now, this may be a bit technical. However, for those of you who have apps today may understand this. Once you've got all that integrated into the Jupyter notebook, you're able to start deploying the AI, training the rounds, and creating better experiences directly on the app. As you can see, this end-to-end takes anywhere from a couple of hours to 5 days. Our mission is to enable AI for all developers, and we believe that we can make it as simple as Stripe makes payments for app publishers today.
Shaima, thank you. That's really exciting, and especially when it comes to enabling any company to quickly adopt AI. And that's a big challenge for startups and small and medium businesses in particular. And even as Umaima was noting, there's a lot of investments happening now in AI-based companies. So you're giving a tool for companies to quickly enable the AI without necessarily having the technical know-how and spending as much time and money to actually enable the AI. So really exciting. We wish you all the best with that, and look forward to hear a lot of great news from you on the growth, on your growth trajectory.
Thank you, Shadi.
Thanks for joining us today, Shaima. So we're gonna move into the last segment, which is a Q&A segment. So if you've got any questions for Shaima or Gael, please share them on the chat. We're going to answer a few questions we have already received from some of you. And I'll start with the first question is from a travel agent out of Nepal. And I saw in the chat that someone from Nigeria has also asked the same question. And as we all know, because of COVID, the travel industry has been badly hit and affected. So it has been a very challenging, with the disruptions, travel and tourism and hospitality has all been disrupted very, very hard. And in some of the developed markets, the governments have been supporting businesses, but in many emerging markets, we're not going to find that kind of support. So my suggestion to companies who are in the travel business is try to make use of this time to develop your digital strategy as much as you can. Taking your business digital will enable you to attract investors, because investors are predominantly interested in that part of the that business model. So for example, if you already have a large customer base that has interacted with you in your travel business, what can you do to reach out to them? Can you offer them some virtual tours? Can you offer them some specific experiences that you could document that would appeal to them, but appeal to the wider audience online as well? So try to make use of this time to shift a bit your business and develop any new digital ideas that are not affected by COVID. And hopefully when things go back to normal, you can resume with your current business. That would be our main tip, because it's very hard at the moment to find funding or investment or even financing to travel related businesses, because the outlook isn't that clear. And capital and investment basically doesn't like really risky engagements or ventures. So unless it's really a high growth area, it's very, very hard to attract kind of investment. So bottom line, for anyone who's in that kind of business, best to shift. Look at the previous session we had, the previous webinar about innovation. What can you do to come up with new ideas that can help you pivot your business a bit to more a digital angle? See the previous sessions around sales and online presence and see what you could do to shift there. Try to focus on tourism or engagements that could happen within your country or within your geography, because it'll be easier to manage that. But my suggestion is make use of that shift, this disruption, and shift as much as you can to a digital world. The next question we're going to tackle, and again, I saw some of the participants had mentioned this here, is from a company that has a franchising business that cleans a car. Can you move to the next slide, please, Daria and Lujane? And the company basically is mentioning that they have a project that would need financing. And I saw also on the chat that there were a couple of people that asked that question, including an NGO. I think Alice from France was asking the question. So there is a term called project financing that some specialized financing entities, sometimes banks, but in other cases not necessarily banks, would be able to fund and finance the project itself. So if you have a project where you have a specific customer, you have a contract that has payment terms, there would be many entities that would be interested to finance that project at a return for them. But at the same time, given, if you have enough margin in it, you can afford to give the financing entity some money, because they will take a little bit more than a bank, but they will be able to finance your project if it is a solid contract in place. So go back to that, check in your vicinity where you're operating. The question was from the USA, if I'm not mistaken, and the NGO was from France, I saw on the chat. So look at who in your area provides project financing, and sometimes there are even companies that finance checks or payments. So basically, if you have a payment that will be coming in another 6 months, but you need the cash now, and you're short of that contract, you can go to this entity. They would give you the money now, and they would then collect it once the contract the contract payment is materialized. So that's another question. Now, the third question here is from a construction company in Nigeria. They want to buy a machine, and they want to finance that. When you're buying assets like machines, the best way is to work with banks to get financing for it, because a bank would have less of an issue financing an asset such as a machine that you could prove will help you in growing your business. So if you go back to that course we were explaining in the funding and financing course in your dashboard on the platform, if you go through that course, put your business model in mind, and you take that along with what you're going to do, the details of the machine that you're buying, take it to a bank, they'll probably entertain financing it for you. So those are 3 questions we received on the through email and before, and we saw some of them were also reflected in the chat. Team, did I miss any other question here that we could answer before we wrap up?
Yes, Shadi, we have 2 main questions in the Q&A box, one of them for Shaima as well, regarding artificial intelligence, from Sefilili. So the question says, how do we infuse or apply AI into construction contracting companies?
Okay, Shaima, are you still with us?
Yes. Hi. So that's a very interesting question that you ask. AI really, the advantage of AI, it supports optimizing your processes. And I'm assuming from a financing machinery vertical, AI is highly used from an optimization perspective, also from tracking the performance output of the manufacturing that you do. There are a lot of specialized softwares with AI enables for this industry. However, unfortunately, we work with app developers and not verticals such as manufacturing.
All right, cool. Thank you, Shaima. Yeah, we also have another question from anonymous attendee related to investors. So the question is how you can link us to investors. We are a startup sugar milling factory located in Kenya.
So at the moment, we're not doing that linking at the moment, but it is in the pipeline. So we're working on bringing on board, and we're telling you this even though it's not public, but since you are actively engaged with us on the webinar, we are working towards hopefully by September to launch this, similar to how you see the offers in your dashboard and the other aspects, for us to do a linkage between investors and companies looking for investment. So stay tuned. We're not there yet. That will hopefully be coming in a few months. But in the meantime, make use of the resources that are available. I've seen another, as we were answering this, we're going through the questions. I saw some other questions about what's the best way to go to investors. I would really encourage you to take that funding and financing micro course. It will take you about 30, 40 minutes to go through it, in one shot. But it will really guide you in terms of how do you put together your thoughts so that when you go and talk to a bank or an investor or a financer, you have a coherent plan, and it's a solid thing that you're sort of really well thought of. And it basically covers the key questions that will be asked by an investor and a financer. Anyway, like we said, there's a lot to be said on this topic. So we're going to have many more sessions, many more webinars on funding and financing. We'll also bring on board different experts to give you their own views. But we're going to have to wrap it up for today. Like we want to try to stay efficient in these webinars so everyone can benefit from them in the short time. But we look forward to seeing you on next week's webinar, and keep the questions coming. So you'll see, you could reach out to us on smeep@potential.com, and of course on all of our social media accounts. Next week's session is going to be about sustainability and impact. So for those who are, this is another area that is getting a lot of investment. So we're going to talk about this next week, about how you can design your business so you show that it's a sustainable business, because there are now many investors that will only invest their money in sustainable businesses. At the same time, there are many banks that will give preferential financing rates for sustainable businesses. So don't miss this episode next week, and we'll touch also on some of the ESG investment, they're called impact investing. And we look forward to, again, hear from you. Any questions that you have, like you see in the chat now, please send them to smeep@potential.com. For those that are joining us live on YouTube and other social media channels, you could share your questions as well over there, and we'll get back to you. Have a great evening, morning for those in Vancouver, and look forward to catch up next week. Have a great one.